Thank you for choosing to watch this video. In it I shall be tying a variation of a Zulu. The changes I've made are to the body material and the head hackles, which I will describe as we tie the fly. As always, start off by mounting your hook in the vise. You want to use your standard wet fly hook. Here I'm using Fooling Mill's Comp Heavyweight in size 12. Once you've checked the hold, catch on the thread. I'm using some of Semperfli's Nano Silk Black and 12 knot. As you can see, this is quite a slippy thread, so you want to make sure you get it caught on properly. Trim off the waist, and then rather than forming the underbody straight away, I will catch in the tail material, which is Glo-brite Floss number 3. Catch it on with a wrap or two and pull to length, and then catch it in down the length of the body. In this case, the full length of the shank or back to where the barb would be on a barbed fly typically. Check that the floss is sitting on top of the hook and finish catching it in. And at this point I'll take the thread back up and tidy up the underbody and the waist end of the floss. I'll also catch in the rib at the top of the body. The rib in this fly is a Lagartun's oval tinsel in silver. You could use a wire, but I like the little added flash that you get from the oval tinsel. I believe the original Zulu tying used a flat tinsel rib, but I want something a bit more robust. Once you've caught the rib in, it's time to dub the body. As I mentioned, I'm using a slightly different dubbing for this body. I'm using a Bibio colour from Fooling Mill and their Sealex dubbing. So got a little bit of red in the mix, which is quite a nice change for this fly. This is a nice dubbing. It dubs easily, it's easy to use and apply to the thread, and it has 2 natural fibres and a small percentage of synthetic, which gives it a nice translucence, which is pretty close to natural seal. So take your time dubbing your thread onto your body. You don't want to go too heavy, and tighten up your dubbing as you go, adding more dubbing as you need, making sure you've got a good coverage of the body of the fly. I also like to introduce a slight taper, thickening the body as I progress up the fly. We have to keep in mind that we want to leave space because we've got 3 hackles to tie in total at the head of the fly. So we need to leave enough room so we don't crowd the eye of the hook too much. So roughly up to where we tied in the floss should be about right for this fly. That looks okay, so I'll trim the tail to length. I want the tail to be about the length of the body or just beyond the bend of the hook. So next step is to catch in the body hackle. Here I'm using a Whiting Farms genetic hen. It's one of the red label capes. Catch it in with a few wraps of thread, fold the stalk back and catch it in, trying to fold back any stray fibres as we do this to tidy up the head of the fly. Once we've caught it in, hold the thread under tension and break away the waist stalk, and then we can wrap the feather. I like these feathers for my palmered hackles because they're quite a nice consistent size and they're soft enough to give plenty of movement to the fly. So we want to palmer the hackle in open, even turns down the body, trying not to be too heavy-handed and break the hackle tip, as I just have. But no great shame, just catch it on with the hackle pliers again and wind. So just said a couple of turns at the head of the fly and then consistent palmer in open turns down the body, being careful of the hook tip. Once we've got the hackle to the back of the fly, catch it in with the rib and rib in open turns, again back up the body. You can vary the number of turns of rib to your own preferences. On this fly sometimes I like to get an extra turn in than I would normally, just for the extra little flash from the silver rib. Once you got to the head of the fly, catch it in with a few turns of thread. Once it's secure, break away the hackle tip. This means you've still got the rib tied in, so if the worst does happen and the hackle pulls out, you could go back and redo it. Once it's secure and you've broken away the hackle tip, trim off the rib and tidy up the tying point with a few turns of thread, making sure that all the hackle's sitting where you want. Then I'll brush the fly with a little bit of Velcro to pull the dubbing out into the hackle a bit and make sure I'm happy with how the hackle's sitting. The next stage is to tie in the head hackles. So here I've got a red and black whiting 4B hen. Now I've selected the feathers with a barb length slightly longer than the body hackle. I've already removed the fluff. I'll catch them in by the tip, fold back the tips and bind those down back to the tying point. Then I'll isolate the tips and break them off, again holding the thread under tension to make sure I don't pull the hackles out. Then we'll wind the hackles together, folding them back as we do. You'll notice I've tied it in with the black over the red. I think this means that the black covers the red a bit more, it doesn't make it stand out as much. Winding the hackles together also gives a nice blended effect as the barbs of the different hackles are well mixed together. So 2 or 3 turns should be plenty for this fly. Number of turns will depend a little on the hackles you use. So catch them in with a couple of turns, trying not to trap too many of the barbs, but you don't need to worry too much about that. Once it's tied in, fold everything back and bind back down, creating a small neat head. This will give you a secure tying point and a neat head to the fly. Once you're happy with the head and the fly, hold the thread under tension as you break away the waste hackle stalk. You can then tidy up the head or just go straight to a whip finish if you're happy with it. 3 turn whip finish should be plenty on this fly. Pull it snug and make sure it's sitting tight. Then trim away your thread. Then I'll give the fly another little go over with the Velcro, just to make sure I'm happy where everything's sitting and to blend the head hackles together and make sure they're sitting where I want them to. That's looking pretty good, so now I'll finish off the fly with some UV resin. As usual, I'm using Solaris Bone Dry Clear. Make sure I get a nice even coating around the whole head without getting any on the head hackles. And being careful not to block the eye of the hook. You could of course use standard varnish for this purpose. Once I've got the resin applied, I'll set it with a torch. You can see the Glo-brite tail popping and the red head hackle slightly under the UV lamp. That's the fly finished. Thank you for watching this video, hope you've enjoyed it. Please drop it a like and follow my channel to be kept up to date on future videos.